I'm in a dilemma as to what to do. Now, do I keep my lovely black TX4 and just continue using it until such time as it has to come off the road in September 2031? Unless, of course, Mayor Khan decides to change his mind again and reduce the age limit for Euro 6 taxis. Who knows what he's going to do? Or do I buy a new electric TXE? It's a really hard decision to make. If I buy an electric TXE, it would be a white one because it would be beneficial for the weddings that I do. But then you've got to pay for it every month, and it's a lot of money. Or do I stick with what I've got? Now, there's pros and cons for both. And the pros for keeping the TX4 are that it doesn't cost me anything except for maintenance. Also, the benefits of keeping the TX4 are that if I want to have a week off work, I just take a week off work. The benefits of having the newer electric TXE, the white one, would be I could use it for weddings, which are, you know, I would potentially get a lot of wedding work for it. It would also enhance the tours that I do around London, of which is a big part of my working week. There's also the thing that I would get 5 years free servicing, 5 years warranty. So it's effectively worry-free motoring, worry-free taxi driving. But it's a real dilemma. It's a real big decision to make. You know, since coming back to driving a taxi, I haven't had to pay out for a taxi because I cashed part of my pension in to buy this one, and it means I haven't got a monthly payment going out. But there are a couple of other things that are forcing my decision. Number one, we lease our car, and because my wife used to do a lot of mileage for the job she did, so she needed a car that was reliable, and we lease it. When we changed it last time, it's basically done very little mileage in the 2 years. And it's due to go back in August, and I've got to be honest, we haven't got the cash to buy a new car, so we're not looking to buy a new car this time because she preferred the last one we had, so we're looking to actually go backwards. I know it sounds a bit silly, but we're looking to buy a slightly older car, possibly 4 years old or 5 years old. But because we haven't got the cash to buy that, it would mean financing the car. But if I sell the cab I can buy the car and basically have no payment on the car anymore, and the car's quite expensive. So that's one thing that's sort of swaying my decision to a certain extent. The other thing that's making me consider doing it sooner rather than later is that LEVC have decided they are no longer going to produce any other colour than black. Sort of harking back to the Henry J. Ford days of, you can have it in any colour you want as long as it's black. And I want to get a white one, obviously for doing the weddings with. So basically there are 2 white ones left in stock. One at Ascot Cab Company and one at LEVC at Brewery Road. So if I want to get a white one, other than buying a second-hand one, I would need to make the decision now. The other problem with buying a second-hand one is that I can't find a second-hand electric TXE with less mileage on than my TX4, and I think it's a backward step to buy a second-hand vehicle with more mileage on than the one I'm driving, the one I'm currently driving. So as you can see, it's a real dilemma. I mean, the new Cabby's £76,000. 76,000. And to be honest, there's not really a great deal in difference between buying or leasing. Well, there's a little bit of a difference between hire purchase and leasing it, or renting one. So you sort of ask, well, why don't you just go and rent one? Well, that comes with its problems, is because the distance I live from London, a lot of proprietors would not be prepared to rent me a taxi where I'm living. And even if they did, they would probably want to change the taxi that I'm driving quite frequently to keep the mileage down. Which means, and the likelihood of finding a white one, somebody that's prepared to rent me a white one, you know, on a long-term basis, is highly unlikely. So I feel like to some extent I'm being backed into a corner, in that to some extent I feel I haven't really got a choice. I mean, this cab's lovely, it really is, and I really like it, but it is getting older, and I'm doing a lot of tours down to Stonehenge and Bath and the Cotswolds and places like that, and I really need to not be worrying about the reliability factor. So I really don't know which way to turn at the moment, to be honest. And it's been driving me mad all night last night. I actually went into Ascot's yesterday, and they're prepared to do me a fairly good deal, I've got to be honest. Not as good as I would have liked, but then the deals are never as good as you would like. I mean, we always try to push for a little bit more, don't we? But not quite as good as I would have liked. But as I say, if I want the white one, I've got to act quickly. I mean, a lot of you would say that, well, it's your business, Jamie, you know. You need to invest in your business. But then you've got the other school of thought that, well, all cabs take the same money. If you're working the streets, they all take the same money, which is quite true. There's another thing to throw into the mix, is that the apps now, a lot of them are giving priority to electric vehicles because they want to be seen to be green. Now, I know I don't do a lot of app work. I do very, very, very little app work. But if I do want to do app work, I don't know how true it is or how much work I'm not being offered. So there is the potential there that I would be offered better jobs on the apps if I had an electric taxi rather than driving my TX4. Some taxi drivers out there would say, well, you shouldn't be on apps, you're a taxi driver. But I'm a little bit on the fence with regards to that, and that's for another video entirely. But just quickly, just briefly, you know, there are passengers, especially when it's raining, that don't want to leave their house or wherever they are to walk out into the street and put their hand up. Obviously, the most cost-effective way for a passenger to use a taxi is just to hail one off the street. It's also the most cost-effective way for the driver to work because he's not paying commission to an app. Also, the most cost-effective way for a driver to work is for the passenger to pay cash because they're then not paying the card processing fees for processing card payments. But I've got to tell you, very, very few people these days actually carry cash, especially the younger generation. It's virtually zero. So you have to have the ability to take cards. And I think as we move forward, app work is probably going to become more prevalent. There's always going to be those that will still hail taxis on the streets, but who knows, I could be wrong. So there's all these factors to take into account. But it's still a very, very hard decision to make. Years ago, you go back to 2002 when I bought my white TX2, the decision, I mean, I deliberated over that decision and I kept worrying whether I'd made the right decision or not. And in the end, it was the right decision. And I remember an older cab driver said to me, you know, he said to me, it's your business, Jamie. You know, you need to invest in your business. You do weddings, so buy the white taxi. Because I didn't know whether I wanted to buy a white one or a black one. I felt I would stand out too much driving a white taxi. But then I drove a white taxi for nearly 10 years. And yeah, you are on offer a little bit because you're quite easily recognised, you know, in a white taxi. And I'm having the same deliberation again. Do I buy a white one or do I buy a black one? Commercially for me, it actually makes more sense to buy a white one. As a traditionalist, I should buy a black one. If I bought a black one, there wouldn't be such a hurry to get the whole thing turned around, because black ones are readily available all the time. So as you can see, I had quite a sleepless night last night with all this going around in my head, and you know, you keep waking up and one minute you're thinking, yeah, go for it, buy it. You wake up again and you think, no, don't do it. Don't do it, it's a huge commitment. But this is what I do for a living. I drive a taxi. And hopefully, as long as I keep my health, I can't see that changing for quite some time. So, what do I do? I know I'm laughing, but it's a serious matter. Very, very serious matter. And not one to be taken lightly. And not a decision to be taken on the spur of the moment, really. Although that's the way I make most of my decisions. So, there's the other thing about it as well, that I've never really driven a TXE. I've driven them very short distances. I've driven one literally half a mile down the road to put it on charge for someone. I've driven one round the block. But then yesterday I sort of, when I was at Ascot Cab Company, I got into one, they had one outside, and I drove it around the block again. And I have to admit, even though my TX4 is really comfortable, you know, the seats in this are lovely. This is the taxi that I always wanted. You know, this taxi used to belong to a man called George Vice. Gorgeous George, to those of you that know him in the trade. And I always used to look at this and think, I'd love to own that. And now I do. And now I'm considering selling it. And you know, I've spoken to friends about this, and those of you that I've spoken to, I really do appreciate you know, you listening to me, bending your ears, and also the advice. I really do appreciate the advice from the two of you, two main people that have listened to me and sort of given me advice. You know, but ultimately the decision's mine. But as I say, you know, the seats in this are really comfortable, and you know, it's all leather. You'll never find another taxi like this one. Never. Not a TX4. Everybody that sees it says it is one of the best TX4 taxis on the road in London. But sitting in that TXE, the electric TX yesterday, you know, there's one that's just gone past me there, a 19 plate that's 3 years younger than this. I did feel, even though I've been very critical of them in the past, I did feel that I had more room in the front for me as a driver. it did feel a slightly more comfortable drive. So when I went into Ascot Cab Company yesterday, they did all the figures for me, took all my details, and they basically said, do you want to go for it? And I said, what happens if I go home tonight, freak out, and decide I've made the wrong decision and I don't want to do it? So Holly, the sales girl there, said, look, I won't put it through tonight. We'll talk in the morning. But it's a big decision. And I risked it, you know, even after sleeping on it last night and going over it. My wife Denise wrote down the pros and cons. I still don't know what to do. There's also the problem is, should I decide to go for it, whether I get cleared for the finance or not? I don't know. I don't know what to do. Do I keep my black TX4, which is in extremely good condition? Passengers always comment on how nice it is. And, you know, when I pull up places and I'm doing tours and other taxi tour guides pull up, their clients get out of their cabs and come over and take photographs of mine. So I could keep it for the novelty reason, you know. It'll end up being a novelty in London. Or should I move with the times and update? Be part of the future. Yeah, it's a decision that I didn't think I was going to be making this soon. I've never been a great advocate for electric vehicles. I still, in circumstances, I still feel that the infrastructure isn't there to support them, and whether electric vehicles are the future or not, I don't really know. I'm not one of those that says, yeah, electric vehicles are the future. I don't know whether they are the future or not. But as some of you know, I'm converting a van into a camper van, and there'll be videos coming about that as well. And we booked up last year to go up to Van Life Festival up in Shrewsbury. Huge event, absolutely fantastic. Did a little video about it, but I'm still a bit bit conscious of carrying a camera around with me in public. Once it goes out on YouTube, I'm not really that bothered, but actually carrying the camera around and people seeing me recording or filming stuff, I'm conscious about that still. But the van isn't ready, so we've still got our caravan, which we are going to be selling very soon. So I towed it up there with the car that we've currently got, which is a hybrid, and it took us 7.5, nearly 8 hours to get up to Shrewsbury because of the traffic on that Friday. It was the end of the children's half-term holiday, and we only stopped for 10 minutes so that I could use the toilet, so that we could use the toilet. And I've got to be honest, I didn't feel that tired. But sometimes when I've done a long journey in the TX4, I do feel extremely tired. So that was probably the thing that sort of triggered me into considering doing it. You know, when you drive a vehicle for a living, you want it to be as comfortable as possible, and I've always been an advocate of, if you don't like the seat in the cab, because drivers years ago used to moan about the seats in the cabs, change it, buy a seat that you feel comfortable in, you know, because you sit in this seat more than you sit in your armchair at home or on your sofa at home, so you need to be comfortable. And I've always been an advocate of making your working environment as comfortable as possible. But as I keep saying, it's still an absolutely huge decision to make. I don't even know how long I've been rambling on for now. "28 minutes. 28 minutes I've been rambling on for. So, time to wrap this up, I suppose. So I had to speak to Holly by 10 o'clock this morning because she wasn't going to be in the office this afternoon, and to give her my decision as to whether I was going to go for this white TX electric taxi or not. So I suppose you want to know what my decision was. I'm not going to tell you. You'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening to me ramble on. I had to get it off my chest. If you do like the videos that I make, please make sure you like and subscribe and hit the bell notification to make sure you don't miss any of the future ones. I've been a bit lazy in editing the videos. I've got loads of stuff to go out, and I'm going to make a concerted effort to start editing stuff and get it out there. So lots more to come, loads of ideas of things to do, so keep watching and be lucky.